Here we are. We're live. I missed my Saturday space. I wasn't here. Just got back into town. So I'm a little out of my element. Do you ever feel like completely inadequate for a task on these spaces? I mean, I do this because I love you guys. I love pTGC. I love Hayden. I'm filling in till some of you guys step up. I mean, it's kind of how I look at it. I'm just a volunteer completely. I feel completely inadequate, out of my element. Ooh, we get to start listening. But I'm just doing what I can. Mic is off. Good evening. Can you hear me, Hayden?
Yeah, I hear you. Sorry, I was just trying to get a post out of the account saying we're live.
Okay.
I'm going to put one in the Telegram right now, too.
I already got something in the Telegram.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I just literally stepped into my office for the first time for a few days. I've been out of my office. Finally jumped in like 15 minutes ago. That's how I'm doing.
Yeah, that's good. That means you stayed busy this weekend, got some time away from the computer.
I did.
Probably spent time with your family, so that's sounds like a good weekend.
I did. And I should be back for a while. We had like back-to-back trips. But there's nothing like being home. It's nice to be home, sleep in your own bed, but getting away is important too. So we got a lot of getting away out of our system now for a while. You're doing well?
Yeah. I had a pretty normal weekend. Played pickleball, went and had dinner at the father-in-law's. That was pretty good. Went to Chuck E. Cheese with my son.
Oh yeah, Chuck E. Cheese. Oh man, that's funny.
It's pretty good pizza over there.
Yeah. Right on. I got a lot of things on my mind for like spaces and that. A lot of things I'm working on that I don't feel like I'm accountable. I'm not making myself accountable to you. I'm just letting you know that I'm working on stuff and going to get some stuff
that sounds good.
Knocked out this week, and we're moving and shaking. I love this ecosystem. And I got the image that you sent over in the private chat.
Yeah. Well, so on Saturday, we kind of did the same thing where we went through the Pulse TGC Twitter. And I feel like that was a good start, just like we did last week. And maybe if you want to just do that again, we can start there. And that picture is kind of part of one of the post from today. So I was hoping that we could start maybe with that conversation. And if you want, you can pull up that picture I sent you as well. Obviously, this is for the people who are watching on YouTube, but sure. I feel like the people listening in can just listen in and understand what we're talking about.
Okay. That sounds great. I am in the Pulse TGC Twitter, and I have that post pulled up. So I'll just go ahead and read it and then pull up the image, and then we can talk about it. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Okay. And you guys can find this on your Twitter also. It says pTGC is a volume, volatility, and liquidity-based protocol. Not telling you anything you don't probably already know, but if you're new, there it is. It's a volume, volatility, and liquidity-based protocol. These three factors all work simultaneously together. Take a look at these two charts. Notice when one chain's liquidity rises, pTGC goes into hyperdrive, causing the machine to run faster and more productively while dramatically outperforming. What does this tell us? Well, as liquidity on chain increases, it directly increases the machine's mechanics and strongly increases price performance. And this actually, the image is half of the one that you sent to me. So I'm going to pull up the one that you sent to me because to me, it's even more impactful. Just got to find it. Give me a second. Okay, I got the image. And we have, so I'll just kind of narrate for those on Twitter. We have an image of Pulse Chain liquidity since pTGC launch, Pulse Chain volume since pTGC launch, Pulse Chain USD since pTGC launch, and then pTGC and USD since launch. 4 different graphs. And they're all on top of each other. And you can see as liquidity increased on the Pulse chain, obviously the volume did, which increased the Pulse. How do you say that? Pulse USD since pTGC launch? Is that the pTGC and USD?
Yeah, one of the charts is the pulse to the US dollar.
Yes.
And the other one is the price against Pulse chain, against PLS. Pretty much what we're showing there, and let me give a little bit of backstory of why I started working with someone and laying these charts on top of each other. Someone just told me to take a look at Go Pulse and look at how low Pulse chain's volume is. And that's no FUD to Pulse chain at all. It just kind of shows you about where we are at on Pulse chain. Is currently the volume is, in my opinion, or not, it's not even my opinion, it's, you can look at the volume of Pulse chain since its inception. It's at pretty much the lows, the range of the lows. So what's that mean? That means that we currently are in the lowest volume stage of Pulse chain. There's been a few other points in the last year and a half where we've been at these levels, but we're at them again. If you look at it, the highs in volumes actually directly correlate to when liquidity is the highest. You can look at the peaks of volume. They line up perfectly with the peaks of liquidity. Why? Because when more money flows on chain, naturally there should be more liquidity. And if there's more liquidity, people are moving more money, which equals more volume. And then also arbitrage bots are moving more money to fixed prices, which equals more volume. So all this stuff is directly correlated. And then if you look at the price of Pulse chain, the price of PLS obviously is directly correlated to this too, because as PLS's price goes up, all liquidity goes up because everything's tied together. So you can see everything moving up and down together as one based on volume, liquidity, and the price of PLS. What I find so interesting about this is when you put our chart, pTGC's chart, next to these, where we hit our highs, those are also the high liquidities, but we ended up making a higher high when Pulse chain, the liquidity, and the volume didn't.
You mean all the way over there on the right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Go on.
As we hit the second part of this cycle, when there was a run-up of PLS didn't actually go to make a new all-time high. The volume didn't go to make a new all-time high. And the liquidity on chain didn't go to make an all-time high. But just because of that little inflow onto pTGC, that pressure forced pTGC up into an all-time high because of it being a volume and volatility / liquidity based protocol. So it's getting stronger, and anytime, even a little blip, like on the far right, that all-time higher, it's not even an all-time high, just that local high in the last 6 months, that little amount actually forced our project into new all-time highs. That little addition. Now what do you think a big addition would do?
Absolutely.
Like, really think about that. Like, let's think about the actual success of Pulse Chain. If our chart's doing this with those little blips, like what's going to happen with any sort of large volume or, large PLS price or large liquidity amounts being over here?
All Pulse Chain needs to do is clear its throat, and pTGC is going to go ballistic.
That's what that chart tells me.
Yeah.
Obviously, past performance is no guarantee of the future, but staring at that, I feel like gives me at least a good idea of how this machine performs when the volume, volatility, liquidity ramp up on Pulse Chain. You can literally see it ramp up on pTGC.
Yeah, that's crystal clear in these charts. It's real exciting.
I see Mando's in here, if Mando wants to add to that at all.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so this is a very powerful chart because we're talking about being able to look at all of the activity on chain with, with basically all the metrics that matter: volume, daily trades, and the liquidity. In that first image, Prairie, if you just first think about the fact that when you're looking at the pTGC chart on the left where it started, October 11th,
Yes.
I think, 2023.
Yep.
Pulse Chain is now down. It's worth less now than when pTGC started. But if you pull the trend line from 11/11 to now, pTGC is literally just up and to the right. It's just, that's all. It's just going on the trend. It's one of the most beautiful charts I've ever seen. But it's interesting that when you look at this Pulse Chain liquidity chart, that chart is actually pulled. It's not the full chart. It starts from the day that pTGC launched on the liquidity chart. So you're looking at a liquidity chart of Pulse Chain on 11/11/2023, pTGC's chart against USD on 11/11/2023. And so you can see as Pulse Chain started to run up and it hit that first big peak, that first big, that was actually the 3 zeros and a 2. You can see pTGC obviously did amazingly well. And then Pulse Chain had its real big kind of long drawn out. I think it was like a 19-week drawdown. You see pTGC did the same thing, just kind of like a long kind of drawn down thing. But on the next run up for Pulse Chain, it's just very interesting because what you have is the liquidity coming in, the volume coming in. Pulse Chain does not make a new all-time high. The liquidity does not make a new all-time high. The volume doesn't make a new all-time high. But pTGC goes on to obliterate its previous all-time high by almost a 10x, right? So what that so clearly is indicating is that because of the deflationary aspect of this protocol, as tokens are constantly being removed from the market and new holders are coming in and old holders are selling out and the tokens are being distributed, the price is over those time frames being pushed. It's being forced to go up. Mm-hmm. And so that's where you have the overperformance over the blockchain. That's why you've had us go from 7 zeros and something against Pulse to now it's what is the current ratio? 3-to-1 ratio against Pulse. So what does that indicate moving forward? What can you take from that? What can you extrapolate from that information? Well, what that looks like to me is that now and look at this. Pulse chain on that liquidity chart, Prairie. Look at the liquidity chart.
Mm-hmm.
It has, if you pull the entire liquidity chart, which if you go to gopulse.com, and if you want to pull that up or not, if you go to gopulse.com and you go to the stats page there, and you go down to Pulse X on the stats page, you'll see the entire chart. And what you'll see is that the liquidity chart for Pulse Chain has gone on to create a higher low. It bottomed out at around 96 million in liquidity. And that was on December, it was right around January 6th, I believe.
Yeah, how do I get to that chart again, Mando?
GoPulse.com
Okay.
slash PulseX.
Okay. I'm there. I see trades.
Scroll down to the liquidity bar.
Okay.
And so what you see is it launch, and then you'll see that the first drawdown, and it basically draws down to right around 92 million on December 10th.
Yes.
Okay. Then it goes back up again, and it tops out March 12th at approximately 481 million in liquidity on chain.
Yep.
Then it has that long drawdown, which is technically the reason why pTGC even went down. It wasn't massive selling on pTGC. It was that the underlying liquidity pairs were coming down, that were paired to. And it bottomed out on September 2nd at $181 million.
Yep.
But notice the first bottoming out was 92 million. The second bottom is double that. So the chain has hit its first low in liquidity, went back up, came back down, and bottomed and created a higher low.
Bingo. Love that.
This is what you're looking for when you're looking for what's actually beginning to happen on the chain. And that's directly correlated to the chart of pTGC. Now, when you look at the chart that you're staring at with pTGC, what you're looking at there is you're looking at when Pulse Chain went to go make all the way to the right, made that last push. It did not create a higher high. It did not go over the 3 zeros and a 2 from the last big push. The liquidity didn't go over the 338. It didn't surpass the previous 481 million. But pTGC went on to destroy all of its metrics by almost 10x.
Yep. I see it.
So what can you extrapolate from that information when we have now created a 2x from the previous floor in liquidity on Pulse Chain, creating a higher low, and we're starting to go sideways now. Actually, we're the higher, it was from 181 million, 187. Now we're sitting at, currently right now we're at 266 million. But it looks like we're going sideways in an accumulation phase at around this 266 million in liquidity on chain. So what's happening is slowly everything is rising and people aren't noticing it. But specific to the pTGC ecosystem, it's absolutely destroying everything because the tokenomics are so powerful. We keep adding that liquidity. The tokens are being removed. It's forcing the prices of the tokens up. And we did a 10x against our previous low. These metrics are very bullish for pTGC.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I'm so excited, man, after this, because I'll be honest, what you explained to me I'm the student that you show me the math formula on the chalkboard. I got it. Explain it to you. I can't. But
Okay.
I see it.
Check this out. Go down to the one that has the liquidity. It's the other one. But instead of the pTGC being in USD, it's the pTGC/WPLS chart. So it's only two.
On gold
The other
pulse
one,
or the diagram?
No. This was on I believe this was on the Twitter thread, where if you keep scrolling down, it was 5 hours ago. It says the pTGC WPLS chart, pTGP performance against PLS is very telling. It's very rare to achieve a chart like this, especially on a chain that has gone down since the launch of the project. Now, when you're looking at that specific chart, that's Pulse Chain that's pTGC against Pulse Chain.
Yeah.
The USD chart was beautiful, right? But look at the trend of pTGC against Pulse Chain with the liquidity up above it now that you have that metric in mind.
It's nuts, man. It's absolutely crazy.
There's nothing in all of crypto like
I mean, all I've been doing is looking at the price of pTGC and Pulse, mainly Pulse. And I'm just watching it go sideways and go sideways. But what you just showed us is our metrics going on in the background that are extremely bullish and exciting for pTGC and for Pulse Chain. You just demonstrated the strength of the Pulse network. If you look beyond the price and look at other metrics, you can see how strong it is. Right? Did we lose you, Mando? We must have lost him. Zen, are you still there? This is exciting stuff, guys. I think maybe they lost me. I'm going to drop out. Drop out. I'll come back in. Yeah, just bear with me, guys. We're just getting excited too. Request to speak. All right.
Brought to pretty much anything. When you have lack of supply of something, the value goes up. And, obviously the chart kind of shows that the supply decreases with every single transaction. So if we're trying to create a store of value that continues to go up for our ecosystem, we do want it to be deflationary. Because scarcity brings value.
Could you guys hear me? I think I dropped out.
I can hear you
now.
Okay. Yeah, I totally couldn't hear you guys there for a little bit.
Yeah, but so Prairie, looking at that information, because you're a numbers guy, you love the numbers. What do you see in that? What's your response to it?
Well, I responded. I don't know that you guys could hear me. Everybody on YouTube could. So I'll just try to relay what I was saying that you may not have heard. Is that, I'll admit, I just look at the prices and I'm looking at Pulse going sideways and going sideways day after day, and I'm like, okay, there's not anything happening here. But what you showed me with different metrics is that there are things happening on the Pulse network, and they're happening in the background. And what is happening is very exciting and bullish, in my opinion. And I think you would echo the same opinion.
Well, yeah, and importantly, with specific to pTGC's, contracts.
Yeah, that's not to
These are
mention
smart contracts.
pTGC. Yes.
Yeah, the thing is that when you see kind of the behind the scenes of look, it's a big deal that the liquidity has now hit a higher low. It's TA.
Yep.
It's TA on the liquidity of the chain, right? There's no reason, and probably Coach loves this too, but there's reasons why you look at this stuff. And you're talking about the interesting part of this is that there are no protocols, there are no tokens out there that are going to outperform in a very unfavorable environment on a chain like Pulse Chain. That's why you don't see anything really overperforming on Pulse Chain. But you see pTGC overperforming on Pulse Chain in the most unfavorable environment because it is the one system that takes advantage of the volume, volatility, liquidity metrics. And as it's slowly ticking up, pTGC keeps making new all-time highs. It has the ability to take the energy that is on chain and harness a percentage of it for itself all the time. It's constantly harnessing the energy of the blockchain. And these are the metrics that allow you to kind of see that when you put them side by side against the USD and the pTGC chart, or the pTGC against the Pulse Chain chart. It's very cool.
It is. All we need is a successful network, and pTGC is gonna surprise everybody. Everybody that holds it is gonna be very thankful.
Now look at the volume on GoPulse. The volume on March 7th spiked up to 200 and essentially 21 million in volume in that one day. Okay. That was the same day that the liquidity spiked up to 428 million. Right?
You said the volume. I'm on that same screen on GoPulse. I'm on the volume chart.
The volume on that big spike in the middle of the chart
Okay.
on March 7th.
The volume was
220 million in volume.
Hey, Banana, make sure you move it to daily instead of accumulative.
okay.
Yeah, because
There
it'll
we
allow
go.
you to actually scroll through the numbers, and on the right side by the price, you'll see the date.
Yep. Got it. Yep. 220 million.
So March 7th, correct. That was the same day the liquidity was at its highest at 478 million.
Yes.
Right? Now, here's a question. Do you think that Pulse Chain is going to hit $1 billion in volume? If it's already hit 220.
Oh, yeah. There's no question.
Okay.
Yeah. If it hit 220, it's going to do 5x in volume, I would guess.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that does to a volume, volatility, and liquidity-based protocol when we go from currently right now, where we're at in volume is 14 million to 1 billion?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, let's just do this. What do you think in your mind a protocol like this does if you just go back to a 220 million per day in volume and you sustain it?
Yeah. Lots of buying and burning of the token.
Absolutely. Because there's so much rebalancing of the pools that have to happen.
Yep. Yeah, man.
I'm going to mute myself out for a second.
I'm so looking forward to that sustained volume. That little spike on March 7th, it was just a foretaste of what's coming. And I mean, we could sustain that for, what do you think, Hayden? You know, how long do you think we're going to sustain volume like that? You know, 3 to 6 months,
So obviously this is just like my personal opinions.
Okay.
And speculation.
Yep.
What
It's not financial advice.
Yeah. I think there's no doubt in my mind that pulse chain could, in a bull market, be over $1 billion in volume a day. But what does that turn into when we go into a bear market, right? Like for the rest of the cycle? Because usually that hypey phase of a bull market, there's usually like 3 like solid months of just like euphoria for everyone, right?
There you go. Yep.
But what's the rest of the 4-year cycle? So the other 90%. That's where I'm interested of what the volume falls at. Let's see after this bull run, the cumulative volume every day is around that 220 volume on pulse chain. So we're not down at these levels. We're around 200 million, not, you know, on average, I'd say right now we're probably around 10 million, 14 million, something like that. On the low days, we're at like the 5 million, for example, yesterday. But what we want to see is we want to see this blockchain having a good average per day, not in the teens, you know, in the hundreds of thousands, preferably, because that will directly correlate to our ecosystem having more volume daily. And if we have more volume daily, our buy and burn rate is on hyperdrive. Our APR rate is on hyperdrive. Our DAO filling up is on hyperdrive, which is equaling PLS ads, or not PLS, LP ads, and also for buy and burns or other whatnot. So that just kind of reminds me that we're just still in such an unfavorable environment. But what was interesting is what you said is the chart that you look at is the price chart, but you're not really looking at all the other charts. This is 99% of people, right? Everyone's just looking at price chart, but there's so many metrics out there that we need to be paying attention to, especially with a project like pTGC and UFO. And, you know, these metrics aren't just specific to pTGC and UFO. Like we could be technically kind of developing price charts for all this information for pTGC and UFO. But what's also interesting is since we're so heavily correlated to this DEX, we can actually correlate our price to the DEX's volume, liquidity, because we're one with it. Our liquidity is tied with it. It's, you know, UFO has almost $5 million of liquidity tied on PulseX. So actually we can look at these charts and not even look at the UFO or the pTGC liquidity or pTGC UFO volume. And they're actually very similar to what's happening. And we can study them and know that we're kind of mimicking it with our own protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because of the fact that there's so many tokens being burned, and there's so many tokens in rewards that are going to long-term holders' hands, a lot of people don't understand how quickly these tokens are actually being removed from the market, because they're just looking at how many have been burned, but they're not looking at how many are actually going into the hands of longer-term holders, right? So you have a buy and burn of 0.5%.
Or, Mando, another thing real quick before you keep going, or already in long-term holders' hands.
Correct. Yeah, so already in my hands, and already in Coach's hands, already in Prairie's hands.
Yeah,
and
man.
Now there's individuals now that are actually starting to take the rewards because it's just free yield. It's not even their principal. And they're starting to, for example, they're taking, 50,000 and locking it out for 4 years. So what we're starting to see is people are realizing the power of it, with Pulse Chain essentially dead at these levels, just created a higher low on the liquidity, We're watching what the cycle's doing, but it's not just the almost 12% that's been bought and burned. There's a whole nother, remember, 2% of the 5% is also going into holders' hands and into stakers' hands. And when you're watching what's going on with the wallets, those aren't really hitting the market either. So there's a rapidly ratcheting up thing that's happening with the token supply, where these tokens are being removed off the market a lot faster than people think. So every time there's a market cycle up in Pulse Chain, the price impact you can see on the chart. That's why the pTGC token went to a massive all-time high, did a 10x from its cycle low, and went on to make new all-time highs compared to Pulse, which didn't in volume, liquidity, price, or anything. So what in the hell happens, man, when Pulse Chain wakes up? I don't know.
I do.
But what we're seeing here, I mean, if you just look at the chart on the daily chart or on the weekly chart for pTGC here, guys, and you're looking at what's happening with the liquidity, you're actually looking at those metrics that most people aren't looking at. Just look at the chart. Look at it on the weekly. And like, it just keeps making these, it goes to a new all-time high, it hits a floor, and then it just goes to a new all-time high. Every time Pulse Chain just decides to get a little bit of energy, it makes a new all-time high. It surpasses everything that Pulse Chain is doing, and it has a little bit of a pullback. But there's so many of the tokens in that run that were removed from the market that can't be dumped back into well, they can be if somebody decided to, but they're not, right? They're not dumping them into the market. So these are just all things we want to point out to people because
yeah, man,
they're things that we kind of geek on, and we think that they're cool for you guys to take a look at.
UFO just dropped to 0. So
Awesome.
what we're seeing is that Bitcoin pumps a little bit today. Ethereum pumped a little bit more. PLS pumped more. And then pTGC even more. So, you know, a little move in Bitcoin starts a cascading effect that reaches all the way down to that little token pTGC. It's like a leverage.
It's not like a leverage. It is a leverage.
Sure.
I mean, since 12 months ago, that's how it's been behaving.
Yeah. And the tokenomics with pTGC has it, like you were saying, as it's been pulled back and eating up that volatility and volume, it's been burning tokens. And so there are less tokens in the supply for people to buy, which forces the price up.
And you know, it's crazy. Somebody made a comment underneath of the tweet that went out that we were just kind of that thread that we're reading from.
Okay.
Somebody made a comment, and they said, what was the comment? Something about like people are fading it.
Okay, he
right?
says it's Zover Alpha Crypto. He says pTGC is a totally different position. Crazy the masses are feeding this. When the learning and understanding of the protocol kicks in, FOMO incoming. That one?
Correct. And
yeah.
And look at the answer.
The masses aren't fading it. They don't even know it exists. Perfect. Yeah, there are a few people fading it, but I'll agree. Absolutely. The people haven't really, by and large, discovered this one yet.
No, not at all.
We're all very early.
Yeah, they haven't even gotten their way to Pulse Chain yet. We're still working on them discovering Pulse Chain at this point.
Yeah.
One thing that you're saying is like with how Bitcoin was up, and then ETH was up more, and then Pulse Chain was up more, and then pTGC was up more. The idea of the X multiplier reflexivity, what's interesting about it is it works not only from PLS to pTGC or PLS to Hex. In ways, it actually works from ETH to PLS as well. It's a little bit different because a lot of PLS is paired with stable coins and stuff like that, so it's not as of a simple of an answer. But one of the most basic things to look at is to make ETH do a 10x. I would need to add up all the liquidity between the DEXs, the centralized exchanges, etc. But just imagine how much money actually needs to get moved into ETH to get it to do a 20x. It's crazy amounts of money.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, it's tied with Bitcoin, so part of the money that moves into Bitcoin also drags it up. This is the beautiful thing about liquidity being all tied together, is if one thing goes up, it all helps each other. So projects being tied together, anything that's tied together is actually helping each other in the direction. There is problems with that. Some liquidity ties do have dead ends, but that's not really part of this conversation right now. But what's interesting about this is ETH is going to help Pulse Chain up. Pulse Chain is going to help pTGC up. ETH is still not even touched its all-time high yet. It's like half of it.
Yep.
So once ETH goes into its all-time high, some people think it's going to 10K this cycle.
Yep, or 14.
Where does that even land Pulse without any value even put into the ecosystem? And then what we need to remember is the liquidity with Pulse is so much smaller than ETH. It's a sub-community pretty much on ETH. The amount of value that needs to move from ETH to Pulse Chain is literally a freckle on an elephant's ass. It's nothing.
Very funny.
And then for a fraction, of that to move from Pulse to pTGC and UFO, or pTGC and UFO, is again just a fraction. We're looking at like how much it takes to do 10x on pTGC, for an example. It's like $6 million or something like that needs to be injected into pTGC to have it do a 10x against Pulse Chain.
Whoa. That's nothing.
But that's nothing. Like, you really think about that, that's, 600 people with, what is it, $10,000 bucks? I think that's
so.
right. Just doing it on the top of my head. That's really not that much.
Yep.
Or 60 people with $100,000 bucks. Obviously, that's
yep.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
But spread out amongst the many. There's a lot of people in the United States, let alone the world. Hitting those amounts of money is actually very, very small.
Oh, yeah.
If you it's very easily attainable with any adoption to Pulse Chain. And then that doesn't even include the Pulse Chain rising. And then we start talking about the X multiplier effect. Let's say Pulse Chain does a 10x and we do a 10x. Well, there's 100x for our ecosystem right there. Easy.
Yeah.
So, Prairie, if you pull up the pTGC chart on the weekly, this is something that I want to bring up. You have the first 5 weeks. You have that nice jump up on the 5th week. And then you have 4 weeks of down. 1, 2, 3, 4 in red, and then it bottoms. So it took 4 weeks to bottom from the first run up. And it goes up. Pulse Chain goes up. We have a great marketing campaign. We're starting to get the protocol out there. People are learning about it. It tops out at 3 zeros and a 1. right around that range. And this is the big, long, drawn down of pulse chain. This is the pulse chain drawdown here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It takes 19 weeks to bottom out on that cycle for pTGC.
On the 8th of July,
so 4
right?
weeks, correct. That's exactly correct. 19 weeks. Then pulse chain makes another move again, but it doesn't make a new high like we talked about earlier. Not in volume, not in liquidity, not in price. But pTGC goes on to do almost 1,000% gain, a 10x against its previous situation, against the low. So now, if you look back, the first cycle was 4 weeks to the low. The second cycle was 19 weeks to the low. That was the big pulse chain drawdown. Now we're up, and we had a blow off top of 62 million or whatever it was in market cap. And we are currently on week 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we're back at a 4th week. So we're at 4, 19, and now we're on week 4. And we've already come down to where that low was 3 zeros and a 1061. Now, the question that I have looking at this is, where are we now in the cycle? Because that's a big question that needs to be looked at. Where are we now in the Bitcoin ETH cycle? Because that is determinative of what pulse chain is looking like. And that's why you have double the liquidity here, as opposed at 181 currently now, or whatever it is, versus the 92 that we had the previous low, right? So when you think about those behind the scenes metrics, do you think we're going to have a 19-week drawdown and an 85% retracement on this specific run-up? So here's my answer, and then I'll let you comment. On the 31st, we have a potential buy the rumor, sell the news event, or a potential good news event. I don't know which one it's going to be. And so what we're looking at, just in terms of fund metrics, is I think that we're going to come in with probably some kind of a neutral information from the community when they go into the courtroom, and we're getting information coming in terms of the SEC stuff. But what do you think really is going to determine? What do you think the price impact will really be? If you get kind of a, it just kind of comes out neutral and people are just pissed that it didn't just get thrown out. They're like, we're going to have to wait. Okay, maybe it draws down to the 4 zeros and the 3, 8. 4 zeros and a 4 again. That still doesn't give you an 85% drawdown, and it gives you a higher low on pTGC again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if that doesn't happen and we get a pretty good drawdown of 20-25% from here, what we're staring at right now, if you draw the line of what that low is on that wick, that red wick on October 21st, if you put that as the low, that's the new accumulation zone.
Okay.
Now, if we fall through that, okay, fine. Maybe we go down 20, 25. pTGC, we know how it just eats up the supply and it keeps distributing the supply to long-term holders. And that's why we keep hitting higher price floors. So you can kind of see where I'm going with it. We have to keep in mind where we are in the cycle, as well as when we're looking at the chart.
I'll add something to that real quick, Mando.
Okay.
What you're kind of just bringing up is we have two things coming in the near future for Pulse Chain, or one of them is for Pulse Chain, the other is just in the markets in general. We have elections, and we have the SEC case. If that was to do anything to the markets that you could put your finger on of what is this going to do to the market, Banana, what would you think it would do? It would make it volatile, right?
There you go.
No one knows what to do. You know, right now they're kind of sitting on their hands like, I don't know what to do. But once information starts coming out, what I believe will happen is really what I say is the chart's going to either go up or down. People are going to act off emotion. This is what happens with all markets, every news event that happens, elections, wars, etc. Right? This is what happens. Who usually makes money off of these events? Centralized exchanges, LP providers, DEXs. Who doesn't make money off of this? Holders, tokens. Well, we've recently flipped the script. So going into these next 2 months, does it really matter short-term outcomes, what's happening, volatile situations? In a volatile situations, we know what it's going to do for our ecosystem. Let's say Pulse takes a dip. Well, that's tons of free volume for our ecosystem. As long as the end outcome is still the same for the Pulse chain community, it just equals more buy and burns and LP ads for our ecosystem at this point. Let's say volatility comes to the whole crypto market with the election. Well, what does that equal? That just equals more volatility running into Pulse chain, which our ecosystem pretty much makes value off of and buys and burns more supply, pays you more rewards, adds more LP. So how I look at all these events that happen every single month, there's always something that adds volatility to the market. We are one of the only ecosystems that actually have a solution to that problem. Most people have to just sit and watch it go on, and they don't actually get to take advantage of any of these situations. The centralized exchanges are really the ones that make the money because people enter in and exit out, enter in, exit out. Market makers fix prices, you know, DEXs, market makers fix prices through the DEXs, but the tokens actually never gain any value. They actually usually lose value in these situations, is the honest truth. But our unique protocol actually takes that and adds value to its token and gives value to its holders. So we can actually sit here and look forward and be like, wow, this month is probably going to have some volatility to it. Up or down or both, you know, we don't really know. But at least we can kind of sit here comfy and say like, well, up or down, we're gaining value. You know, It might not show right away because the price is going down. Like in that exact instant, you don't see it because the price is going down, which is making the value shrink. But when we come back up out of that, that's where you see the value. And you can even see it with our liquidity as we hit old all-time highs and you check our liquidity, you're like, wow, we have way more liquidity than the last time we were here. Wow, we have way more tokens in the burn address that can never be sold. Wow, our holder count is way larger and our supply is way more distributed. You know, it's easier to see when you put a little bit of time in between the same prices, but what we have to remind ourselves is this is happening with every transaction.
So currently right now, where the price is now, you just draw a horizontal line where that last week bottomed out, that wick, you can see that thin wick down, you put it there and you just maybe go up a little bit. This could be the sideways accumulation phase that we see. Every time it goes up and draws down, it kind of goes sideways. The first time it went sideways for 4 weeks. The last time it bottomed after 19 weeks, and it literally went sideways for 1 week. Came up, came back down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It gave you 4 weeks of a sideways, and then it went off to the races again. So now we're up again. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4th week. It wicked down, it created that bottom. Unless it does it again, we're in that new accumulation zone, which is a higher floor, a higher zone. If we have a weird election thing or a weird SEC thing, we're probably going to see it come down, right? But it'll be a higher low again because that many more wallets came in. that much more tokens have been burnt, that much more rewards went into strong hands. Obviously, guys, this is all hypothetical based on just what we're seeing. It's not, let's just say everything could go to zero in crypto, but we're just wanting to put in front of you what we're seeing, right? Because, we always want to focus on the negatives, but guys, sometimes in crypto, positive things happen, and they happen really, really fast. And then it just shoots up and you've literally lost that opportunity. So we don't know when that happens, but it's really good for the community to kind of put their mind to these kind of metrics and these kind of zones, thinking about the cycle, thinking about election, potential SEC, negative, positive, neutral news. I don't think there's going to be any negative news coming from the case. If anything, I think it's just going to be a neutral thing, and okay, the next dates, whatever. We just kind of just keep on going on, right? It's a civil case, yada, yada. So to me, this is very exciting for pTGC. Everything is super bullish for this thing. The chart is just phenomenal. It's astronomical.
And we've been adding an average of 17 new wallets every day for the past several weeks. And as somebody said on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, that's their most important metric that they look at. And I've been thinking about that a lot. And I would have to agree that wallet count is very important. 17 a day, that's not too bad. Who knows who those people are, Who knows where the next K for a K is going to jump in, or maybe a Sami, or whoever it might be that's going to load a wallet up with pTGC and start talking about it.
Well, as we start getting closer to this kind of emotional tipping point in this part of the cycle, this is when people start asking themselves at home with their peers, their friends and stuff, okay, I got to look at my portfolio, and I think we're going to start to see something move here. I think the engine might start to be revving. Is my portfolio set up right, or do I need to move it around into some more quality things that are more longer term now that I've made money swinging, trading, or whatever? And I think the pTGC is I know for a fact pTGC is one of those assets on chain that a lot of people have that in the back of their minds, like either they want to take a position or they want to have more loaded up in their current position. Mm-hmm. So you guys know this. If you've been here for a while, you know this. Once the things start to move, people kind of have a freak out moment because they know, okay, it's going. I gotta get my ducks in a row, and that's when you see a lot of kind of rebalancing of your portfolios going on. I think we may be at the cusp of that. We'll see.
Yeah, a big reason for that, in my opinion, Mando, is once everything starts going up, let's say it's moving up together, like alts are moving up at the same pace as Pulse. But what people have to ask themselves is, how much liquidity is even with this alt? Because if it's moving up at the same pace, let's say as Pulse or as pTGC, that's fine, but is there enough value for me to even pull out of this thing, especially if someone else tries to pull out of it before me? How much value is even there? And what I usually see is people realize that, and they're like, okay, everything's moving up together now. It's time to get into the projects that actually have real liquidity to support the X's.
That's just common sense for people that know what they're doing.
We have been going for like an hour. No one's came up this round. If anyone does want to come up, ask a few questions, add to the conversation, mix up the conversation, feel free to come up or request to speak.
Yeah, I would like to invite people to come up to speak. There's a lot of people sitting in the background, and it's kind of that time in the cycle, and we'd love to have some conversations with people and just talk crypto. Hear your thoughts on what's going on, what you think, if you've got questions. that's why Zen holds these spaces. So if you want to hold up your hand and get in here, please do.
Kay Hudson asks on YouTube, standard cycle or elongated cycle this time?
Yeah, so I believe in the saying that the great IMP Roots always says, be a genius if you're right, be a genius if you're wrong. Have a plan. Don't care if you think it's going into an elongated super cycle or not. Have a freaking plan.
Yep, I agree.
That's how you win.
Yeah. A written plan, preferably, that you can refer to when you are all flustered and excited and wondering what to do.
Yeah, you don't have a plan. If you don't have it on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard and in a filing cabinet, you don't have a plan. So yeah, when people ask that about, there's a big narrative out there that kind of is the narrative, is this elongated super cycle. Bitcoin is kind of come into its own. It's kind of matured now. We got the ETFs, BRICS is starting to talk about backing their currency with it. It's being adopted sovereignly, all this type of stuff. That's all great and everything. Does it elongate a cycle? We have no freaking clue, and really nobody knows.
Yes. So I'm going to remind everyone to get their Morales beans so they can rate pTGC. It's so important that we rate pTGC and UFO on Morales.com. And then also over on Dex Screener and Dex Tools, make sure you rate pTGC and UFO over there also. And I'm overdue on claiming my beans. I've been away from my office. I'm going to claim I think this is my last 500 beans right now.
Yeah, you just reminded me too.
I mean, this Morales.com really has you gotta have some tenacity to come back to this thing every day. They really have a high barrier to entry. You have to go to the site, I think, at least 6 different times. You got to sign up and then claim your 500 beans. You have to have a total of 3,000. You can't claim them all at once. You can only do it at once every 24 hours. So it'll literally take you 6 days of coming back to this site before you can simply rate pTGC. What does that mean for tokens that are rated on this site? I think it goes without saying. So that should emphasize the importance of going to Morales.com, make an account, collect your beans, and I finally have my 3,000 beans, and give pTGC a good rating. The highest rating, 5 stars.
If you look at ETH right now, sorry to switch it off Morales. That thing's awesome, and Ivan's been doing great with just the RH, just being fair to RH. I really love Ivan for that. But if you look at ETH is up 3.2% on the day.
Yeah.
And if you just go to the daily and you look at that on Dex Tools, right, and then you swap it over to Pulse Chain, you're going to notice Hart's Law. And look at Pulse Chain. Pulse Chain's up 7.3% on the day. So you have ETH up 3.2%, and you have Pulse up 7.3%. And that's why when you go to the bubbles, everything is green.
Yeah. Yep.
Just a little blip. So I think that among some of the best people I know for ETH, some people are absolutely apeshit crazy, and they're talking like 48,000. That's the apeshit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the more conservative is, between 10 and 12,000, which is like a 4X from here, minimum on ETH. So what does that do? What does that do if you get a 400, 500, 600% on ETH?
That's going to be an 8 to 1,200% for Pulse.
That's just from Hart's Law. in that context of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, you have to talk about sell pressure and all that kind of stuff, and green candles and liquidity coming in and creating higher highs on that liquidity chart. But for you guys that are in here, pay attention to that because it is important. But the one protocol, or I should say ecosystem, that is taking advantage of it is this ecosystem. It's very unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we're overlaying it, we also found the same thing with UFO. UFO is just a shorter time span, so there's not as much data to compare against each other. That's why it's so nice to compare pTGC, because it has part of the chart, that first run up of the volume and liquidity that we can actually show, where obviously UFO came after that. So a big portion of the chart is missing. So it's less, what would the word be, exciting to compare because there's just less information there. But it pretty much shows the exact same thing. When volume and liquidity bumps up on chain, the price of pTGC obviously did what it did.
Yeah. Stephen H. says, this protocol machine reminds me of that movie Office Space, when it came up with that program fractions of a penny, but it added up to way more than what they were expecting. And the notorious one says, I don't mean to flex too hard on people, but I have 3 whiteboards. If that makes sense.
Smart man.
Yeah.
That means he's masterminding on multiple different scenarios based on multiple different potentials in the market. So you could pivot quick without having to think from one potential plan to another.
Who else wants to come up and mention anything? Make comments?
Here's what I want to mention too. I talked about this before. If nobody's please raise your hands. Cut us off.
Yeah.
We're not here to talk by ourselves. It's so boring hearing us talk. But so many people just don't care. They just want to, take it all in, which is fine. But one of the things I want to say is, and Zen and I were talking the other day, and it was like, it's amazing because of this protocol. It's like tweets will go out and the wallets are like almost 9,000, right? And I don't know, there's like 2,200 in the TG and then like 2,300 in following on X, but you'll get like maybe 5-10 comments, right? And so we were talking about how, I think Zen said it best. He's like, I think people have, it's an anomaly. People have won so hard that they've become numb to winning. So, can you imagine that? Can you imagine being in a token that you're numb to winning so hard that you don't even care about commenting and being energetic about it anymore?
I have felt that way. I can relate. I think I've made the comment in the Telegram myself.
It's just like, oh, it's just pTGC again. Just did another tax for me. Whatever. That's just like another fart in the wind. Whatever. No big deal. Let me go look for another shit coin.
Yeah, I've literally felt that way. It's another all-time high. I've said this in the chat. I know I have. It's another all-time high. I'm yawning.
So I want to show you something for everyone I have you on, and then we can go or whatever you guys want to do. But if you go on Dex Tools and you put it on the weekly chart on pTGC. Okay. This is a very easy way to see the amount of X that the token has done without having to guess. And it's an important thing to know. It's an important thing to do. It shows you the percentage wise, and then once you have the percentage, you can figure out what the X is. So once you pull it up, let me know.
Okay, I've got it pulled up.
Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to, you know how to expand the chart? Make it a full screen mode?
No.
It's the four little arrows that are all going in different directions together.
Oh, yeah. Give me just a second. I can find it. Hold on. Yeah.
It's just above the chart. So it's four arrows like that are in a box, like all pointing like different directions. Full screen mode.
Oh yeah, I like that. Got it.
Okay, that way people can see it. Okay, so once you have that, now up at the top left, does it say pTGC/WPLS?
Yep.
Okay, so this is pTGC against the dollar. All right, now at the bottom right of the screen, where it says auto log and then it shows the percentage button, click the percentage. It says toggle percentage. Click the percent button.
Okay.
And you'll see that a little white line appeared at the bottom of the chart.
Yes.
Across the bottom. It's showing you where the chart started.
Okay.
And up above, you'll see a green dotted line where the current price is.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. 133,000% against USD.
I see 814,000%.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Maybe my Dex Tools is freaking out over here.
Maybe mine is. 2, 3, 4.
You know, it actually has been doing that, by the way. But nonetheless, this is how you can actually see. Yes, it says. Let me do the percentage again. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. Take your time. This is good stuff.
A lot of people. Yeah, well, you know, it is. So that's 815,000%.
Yep.
So you can see, okay, that's 1,815.29K. You see that?
No,
815.29K on the pTGC WPLS chart. You click the percentage, and at the top right in green, it's there's a green dotted line, and if you follow it all the way to the right, you'll see 815.29K.
I see it in percent. I see 814,202%.
Okay. Well, my Dex Tools is saying 815. So let's just put it at 815. That's 815,000%, which is an 815x against USD.
Yeah.
815%. Now toggle the pTGC WPLS and make it say pTGC/USD. And now you'll be looking at 710,000%, somewhere there in that range. And this is pTGC against Pulse Chain.
Okay, I got to hit the percent. Yep. Well, I see. Hold on a second. I've got.
Are you on Dex Screener or Dex Tools?
I'm on Dex Screener.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm on Dex Tools. That's why we're not.
Oh, yeah, that might be a difference. So against WPLS, I see 706,000%.
Okay, so 706. So what that means is that's a 706x against Pulse Chain from the bottom.
Yeah.
That's how you can always look at. It's an easy way. You just widen out the screen so you can see it.
Yeah.
Click that little percent button. It's going to give you the percentage. And then obviously if it's 710,000, that's a 710x.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool trick. It's not a trick, but everybody should know how to do that.
But just look at that chart, dude, against Pulse Chain. It's just astronomical.
I know. Yeah, I know.
I'll leave it there.
And you can do it against all the other, all the pairs, all the tokens that we're paired with too. That's very telling. Bulltard says PTG stands for Pulse Chain, the goat coin, and prints the greenest candles. Pulse Chain, the goat coin. I like that. But Ovidian Heck says we were just talking a few minutes ago about, it's another all-time high. I don't feel like reposting this Twitter post. He says, the bear market was brutal. I am happy to post one pTGC post on X every single day. I won't get tired of being grateful. That's a good attitude. I like that.
That's great. That's great, because it's been very quiet in our community in the TG and on the Twitter. And, socials matter. If we want people to learn about it and see something cool in our space, it helps if the community can give a little love, even though maybe you're in hibernation sickness and you got way too much gains.
Yeah. It was a good night, guys. It was a good night. Mando, thank you so much for what you shared tonight, man. If you have any more illustrations, and I imagine you probably do, let's do that again and bring those forward. And then let's do this one again, maybe in a few weeks, where we look at that background data. I just think that has so much merit.
We'll see. Well, look, guys, I got to take off. But Zen, thanks for coming. Prairie, everybody that showed up. Appreciate you guys. And you guys have a good Monday night.
You too, Mando.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Mando. And yeah, I think I'll say one thing before, I guess, closing it down is what Mando was talking about. Well, we're hitting these amazing goals, especially about where Pulse Chain is currently. And it seems like everyone isn't super excited, sometimes. And it's because we've hit it so often. And that's also amazing, right? We want our community being so, used to winning because we want our community to win. And you can almost see these with, let's say a professional athlete. Some of the best professional athletes become so used to winning that it, you don't even see them beyond excited anymore. And I feel like that's our community. I've literally seen us hit all-time highs, and then hours go by and someone goes, oh, by the way, we just hit an all-time high. And it's just which, is awesome. I feel like that's the example of, I remember back in the day, I was watching some video with this guy, Travis Pastrana, who is a motocross guy. And he was on a track of beating world records. He wanted to beat a bunch of world records. And then he was saying in one of his interviews, I conquered a world record in the morning. I jumped out of a helicopter without a parachute, and no one's ever done that before. And by the time it was nighttime, I completely forgot I even did that, and I was on to trying to conquer the next goal. And that kind of always resonated with me, because it's okay, you hit this milestone, and you don't even dwell on that milestone so much. You give yourself that pat on the back, but now it's time for that next milestone, your next goal. And I feel like that's our community too. Is we're okay, that's one milestone. Well, what's the next? And this kind of goes back to when we hit 1-to-1 with Pulse. Instantly, when we hit 1-to-1 with Pulse, we're good job, guys. We hit 1-to-1 with Pulse. Well, when are we hitting 2-to-1 with Pulse? And guess what? In 1 week, 2 weeks, we hit 2-to-1 with Pulse. Okay, community. Well, when's 3-to-1 with Pulse? Right? We want to keep pushing our capabilities to the next level, because that's how you can grow and grow and grow and grow as a community, and half of it's believing that you can get to those numbers, right?
Yep. One goal I want to see is overtaking. I'm looking for it to confirm this, but what's the next token we need to overtake in market cap? Isn't it pDI? I think we already overtook Atropa or matched Atropa.
Yeah, I think the next close one that's relevant would probably be pDI.
Yeah. So pDI, just so you guys know, it has a market cap right now of 63 million, and pTGC, I think, is about 40 million. Give me a second and I'll get it.
And I kind of want to clarify something like this, because obviously we're talking about beating pDI, but I also look at it as competitiveness, but with the same goal, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like being on the same baseball team and you being competitive with your teammates on like who's going to hit the most home runs that season, right? You're competitive with each other, but the end goal is for both of you to win.
Yes.
Because you're on the same team. And
Yep.
as you hit more home runs, you give your team more chances to win. Just like if we hit more home runs in pTGC, if we make more X's, we actually increase the chance for pDI to win because we're also increasing the value of pDI due to our large liquidity pairings. The same goes the other direction. When pDI is hitting homers, when pDI is moving up X's, they're increasing the value of pTGC, increasing the chance for us to win. So it is good to be competitive with your peers, but then also recognize that you're on the same team with the same goal. And that's what's super cool, I think, about Pulse Chain with these liquidity ties with other tokens, because we are a team and we do have the same goals. And, we're just at the beginning of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I agree. Well, Zen, shall we shut it down for the day?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Guys, remember to go to morales.com and rate pTGC. What else? We have a Spaces again this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, come with questions. And when we post it on Twitter, repost it, try to invite somebody to it. And yeah, I think that's about it. Anything else?
I think that's it. I just wanted to say thanks to Banana for co-hosting with me, and thanks to the whole entire community for being in the space, being in the community, believing in Pulse Chain, believing in pTGC, believing in UFO. It means a lot to me. I believe means a lot to Banana. I believe that we're going to do amazing things. I believe here on Pulse Chain, also being a sub token on Pulse Chain, we're the underdogs in all of blockchain, but I think big things are coming. I think we've already conquered big things.
Yeah.
I think we're becoming a big fish in a small pond, but I believe we'll be a big fish in a big pond here soon. And
yep.
It's just exciting to be on this journey with you all too.
Yeah, I agree. We'll be. I think we're going to be a big fish in a small pond. So we're here for the users, Zen. And Hussein has just a real quick question. What are the main difference before we go? What are the main differences between UFO and pTGC?
The main difference between the two is majority of all pTGC's liquidity is burnt or protocol owned, and the majority of all UFO's liquidity is supplied by the community and incentivized via a farm. So the size of UFO can actually grow more rapidly and is already larger, which then in turn equals more liquidity web action, right? Because the web is bigger. So the action via the liquidity web is more, but it's supplied by the community themselves via the farm. So at points, it might get removed or it might get added to in the future. Where pTGC is burnt and owned by the protocol, so it grows a little bit slower because the DAO adds it, but it can never be removed, which is also its own metric. They also have different unique things about it, to where pTGC has a staking protocol and a DAO built into it. So pTGC is a DAO with single-sided staking with almost 100% protocol-owned LP. UFO is a farm where the users of the protocol are incentivized to provide the liquidity. What's the same about the protocol is the unique web technology where the value that everyone puts into the ecosystem is actual value working for us every single day, not just sitting in a wallet or cash sitting under your couch. The money is actually working for us and increasing our value with every single transaction.
There you go, Hussein, right from the founder. And John May is either at the hospital or on his way to the hospital for his wife to have a baby. So congratulations, John. Have a great time. Maybe we'll see you on Saturday, but we won't expect you to be there. but have a good time with your family and everything.
That is very exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to check out and we'll see you around the blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. I just got 2 calls for work, so let me shut it down.
There you go. See you, Zen.
Okay. See you guys.
Excuse me. Thanks everybody for being here. Yeah, guys, that was a really good space. I love that stuff from Mando. I've got to go back and rewatch that one. If you didn't catch the stream from last Thursday with Mando, Crypto Kong, Steve, Hayden, and myself, you got to go watch it. Was it last Thursday? Oh, can't remember. I think it was. Anyhow, it's on my channel. It's on Steve's channel, Kong's channel, and I think it was last Thursday. Bad short-term memory, obviously. It was so good. We got excellent feedback on it, and you may not want to watch it until you have some dry powder on the side, because wow, I haven't even rewatched it. Yeah, it was last Thursday. I haven't even listened to it yet. When I'm modding these things, I don't get as much out as when I just listen to it, because there's so much going on. I try to pay attention, but it's very difficult. So yeah, it was last Thursday. Guys, we'll see you again on Saturday. Have a good week. Bye.